Hi there, it's Mrs. Scarple, and in this video we're going to be evaluating and solving equations with two variables when given the value of one of them. When all is said and done, you should be able to demonstrate how to solve these equations with two variables and given one of them, or the value of one of them. And we're going to practice with integers and fractions. So let's take a look at our first ones here. Solve the following equations when the given value of x, or when given the value of x. Show your work. And in your assignment as well, we want you to show your work. We do not want this to be a process of guess and check. So in our first situation, we have y equals x plus 3, and we're given that x equals negative 10. What that means is we're going to take this negative 10 and we're going to substitute it for x in our equation. So we're going to have y equals negative 10 plus 3. And when we simplify that, we have y equals negative 7. In our next equation, we have fractions, and as we've been experiencing in class, not all of our problems are nice and neat with integers. So we're going to do the same thing here. We know that x is negative 2/3, so I'm going to take negative 2/3, and I'm going to substitute it for x in my equation. So we have y equals 2 times negative 2/3 plus 3/2. Now, order of operations tells me that I need to multiply 2 with negative 2/3 first. When I multiply 2 with negative 2/3, keep in mind 2 is the same thing as 2 over 1. And multiplying fractions, you're multiplying your numerators and you're multiplying your denominators. A positive value times a negative value is going to be a negative. 2 times 2 is 4. 1 times 3 is 3. So negative 4/3 plus 3/2. The next thing we need to have in order to add fractions is a common denominator. So we want to look for the first multiple, the least common multiple of 3 and 2. The least common multiple of 3 and 2 is 6. To turn 3 into 6, I multiply it times 2, so I also need to multiply my numerator times 2. To turn the denominator 2 into 6, I would multiply by 3, so I have to multiply that numerator by 3. So we are going to end up with y equals negative 8/6 plus 9/6. And when you're adding, you combine the numerators, so negative 8 plus 9 is 1/6. You leave the denominator the way it is. You do not combine them. So that's pretty straightforward when you know what x is. A little bit more work is involved when we know what y is. Again, we want you showing your work. You're still going to substitute, but in this case it's for the y. So I'm going to have negative 26 equals 3x plus 1. And we're going to use our steps for undoing and solving the equation for x. We do not want you using guess and check. So when you're solving, you're going to basically do your order of operations backwards. So we're going to start by undoing addition and subtraction. So to undo a plus 1, you're going to subtract 1 from each side. That's going to be negative 27 equals 3x. 3x is the same as saying 3 times x. To undo the multiplication, you divide by 3. So negative 27 divided by 3 is negative 9 equals x. And even when we have fractions, we can do the same thing. take this 7/3, substitute it for the y. So we have 7/3 equals 2 plus 2/3 x. To undo this positive 2 that's being added to the 2/3, we need to subtract it. Now keep in mind, when you're subtracting fractions, you need a common denominator. My common denominator in this case is going to be 3. So I'm going to take the -2/1 and multiply each of those by 3. So what we end up with is 7/3 minus 6/3 equals 2/3 x. So when we complete that subtraction, we have 1/3 equals 2/3 x. Now, I know I mentioned on the previous problem 3x is multiplying. 2/3 x is also multiplying. Keep in mind, dividing a fraction, dividing by 2/3, turns into multiplying by 3/2. Anytime you're dividing fractions, you end up multiplying by the reciprocal. You do the dot flip. So we're going to multiply each side by 3/2. This will turn into a 1x, and on the left side we will end up with 3 times 1 is 3, 2 times 3 is 6, equals x, and 3/6 reduces to 1/2. And that is how you are going to be working all of your problems in your assignment for evaluating or solving equations with two variables given the value of one of the variables.